Hi, I'm Jimmy Colefax, and this is The Story. We're continuing with Tom and Donna Cole, sharing their unique story. As we heard before the break, Tom grew up struggling with his identity and same-sex attraction. One day, as a young adult, he met a kind lady at his work named Rosie, who he knew was a Christian and had made a big impression on him. Tom knew he wanted what she had. Now we'll hear what happened next in Tom's life.
So I invited myself to church with her the following Sunday.
What did she think when you said, yeah, I want to go to church?
Oh, she said she was elated. She couldn't believe that I was saying this. And she said, well, we'll pick you up. You know, she wasn't going to take any chance I didn't show up. So her and her family picked me up in their station wagon and we went to church. And at the end of the service, they gave an invitation to accept Christ. And I went forward. And I remember that day like it was yesterday, and the song that was playing, and I wept and I cried, and the words were, I long to be the bride that you're returning for, dressed in garments white and wrinkle-free. And I just wept, and I walked outside, and the sky was bluer, and the grass was greener, and like, I knew I was different.
Yeah.
I knew I was changed.
Yeah.
I would like to say that in that moment, all my same-sex attractions were gone, but they were not. And didn't really know what to do with that. I remember reading the scriptures early on. I never heard a sermon that it was wrong at that point, but something deep down inside knew it, that this was not what God intended for my life. And I read 1 Corinthians chapter 6. It says, know ye not that such will not inherit the kingdom of heaven, no drunkards, nor liars, nor adulterers, nor homosexuals, and shall inherit the kingdom. I thought, man, I got 4 out of 5. This is not good news. But you got to keep reading. And I kept reading, thank goodness. And it said, and such were some of you, but you were washed and sanctified by the blood of his son. And I thought, okay, there were gay people in Corinth, and they changed. And something in my heart came alive and said, this is a possibility for me. And so that started the journey of really just seeking God's will for my life and for my sexuality. And actually a big burly dude that I went to church with came up to me one day and put his arm around my shoulder and said, hey, how can I pray for you? And I'm like, you really want to know? And he's like, yeah, that's why I asked. And I said, well, I came out of homosexuality and I still struggle with those feelings. And he goes, well, I don't know anything about that, but I struggle with lust. It can't be that different, can it? And I'm like, I don't know, I guess. And he goes, all right, I'll pray for you. You pray for me.
Wow, just really sincere.
Yeah, very sincere. And he was. And he really did pray for me. And I really did pray for him. And I thought, man, if this works with him, I'll just tell everybody. And I did. I started sharing with anybody who would listen where I was struggling, if they asked for prayer, if a prayer request for me. And I said, yeah, this is where I struggle. And I found my greatest healing was not in a program or a book, but it really was in relationship, and especially relationship with other men. Yeah, and then I went to a prayer meeting, and at that prayer meeting, I met a young woman named Donna.
Oh.
Hello.
Does that just happen to be Donna who's sitting over here?
It just happens to be that
Yes.
very same woman. Yeah, a very different woman at that time, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we heard in the introduction, both of you struggled with same-sex attraction in your teen years, in your young adult years. So, Donna, let's hear your story.
Well, one thing that we always say is that you do feel born that way. A lot of people do. We did. So I always have such compassion for people that struggle in this area, especially when we have a culture that tells us all that is true and it feels so true. So for me, I was raised in a family of all girls. We didn't have any brothers. And my father was a real man's man. So he wanted everything done at a certain time. He was very controlling. And he also was very abusive to my mom and to us. And so we had a very orderly life. The house better be clean. My mom better have the dinner on at a certain time. And if those things weren't done, we knew Dad was going to explode and never knew when he was going to. And so the first pregnancy my mom had was my older sister. And then 3 years later, she was pregnant again. And that time it better be a boy because he so wanted a boy and never had one. So when I was born, somehow a child will pick up on those things. It might never have been said. Like, it wasn't as boisterous as with Tom, where where my parents said, "Oh, you know, we wanted a boy. Your name would have been this." All I know is from very early on, I wished my name was Charlie. I was more like the firstborn son of our family than ever a daughter. I went out and changed oil with my dad, or when my sisters, there was another daughter born after me. So they would get girl toys. I would get boy toys for Christmas or my birthday. And that didn't bother me because I loved trucks. And I
was going to say, changing oil. How did you feel about it?
Oh, it didn't bother. I loved my dad. So I wanted to be near my dad. My mom, my mom was such a girly girl, and I was nothing like that. She loved clothes and makeup and all those.
So you were more of a tomboy anyway.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't like you were being pushed into a square when you were a circle or something like that.
No.
Okay.
And I believe God made me that way, but I also believe that little girl picked up that they wanted a boy. And I believe at a very early age, I pushed aside my femininity, and a child will become what their parents want because they so long for love.
The affirmation. And
yes.
everything. Yeah.
And of course, at that young age, I didn't understand all that. But after I came to know the Lord, he started to heal some of the wounds in my heart. And as he started to heal those things, I started to put the puzzle pieces together on why at such an early age I thought I was born attracted towards women. But really, it was a deep void in my heart and a longing for another woman's arms to embrace me, to love me. And we also learned that Tom took some counseling classes, and that only 30% of women are thinkers and 70% are feelers, and vice versa in the male world.
So if I'm understanding you right, you're more cerebral.
Yes.
So you're more of a thinker and not, kind of like what Tom shared, where he's more of a feeler and crying at
Yes.
Born Free in commercials.
Yes, and so men, in the men's world, 30% are feelers and 70% are thinkers.
So you guys are just the flip of what is typical in society about 75% of the time.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, and what that causes is you feel like you don't fit in, and you honestly don't. You really are different than the vast majority of the others.
Yeah, so it solidifies what you already are thinking about yourself. That I'm really not a girl, I'm more like a boy. But that is absolutely not true. And just like we always talk about that when we get married, we realized I am nothing like a man and he's nothing like a woman, even though I'm a thinker. So,
Because there are a number of tomboys who get married and have
absolutely.
heterosexual relationships.
yes. But if you add in all the other things, I believe it solidifies this lie that I believed that I was more like a boy and also that I was gay, homosexual. So then, so my mom divorced my father when I was 8 years old, and she decided to live a life she never got to live because my mom was born in an abusive family. And my grandfather was abusive to the kids and to my grandmother. Then my mom married into that same kind of thing because when you're really not healed, what seems familiar to you is comfortable, even if you don't realize you're doing that. And so my mom married my dad at 18, right out of high school. He was a little older than her. And she also, was in that abusive relationship. So then when they divorced, when they were married for 13 years, they were divorced. Then my mom decided she'd live a life she never got to live, and she just started going out, partying. The three of us lived with my mom. The truth is we were afraid of our father, so we lived with her. But right away she got another man into our lives, and she didn't marry him right away. But if my dad was abusive, this man was 10 times more abusive than my father ever was.
Oh, wow.
And so the fear of men and the walls that I started to build around my heart became harder, even though, again, at the time I didn't understand all that. And so my stepfather, in the end, murdered 2 people. So he's in prison for that. So
Wow.
he was that abusive. Then came the next stepfather the last one was around 2 or 3 years. All the stepfathers were around 2 or 3 years. My mom had a child with each of those stepfathers, but by the time that baby was birthed, they were moved on from our lives. So the next stepfather was not abusive like the other 2 physically, but he did start to molest me and my sisters. So again, that is destroying who you are in your personhood and in your identity.
You're very confused.
Yes. And so then he was around 2 or 3 years. Then he left. And then after that, my mom just never married again, just had men, live with us. And so all this is shaping who I am and solidifying my brokenness. And then at age 18, I never dated male or female, but at age 18, I started working in this area, and this man who was about 10 years older than me asked me out. And at this time, that was the first time I ever went one way or the other with someone. And we were all just drinking and having good time. And I don't know what he put in my drink, but he put something in there. And the next morning I woke up and I was with him, and I thought, what is going on? And then for about 3 months we dated, and I realized, I cannot receive from a man. That's when I really understood that I absolutely am born gay. And so at the same time, I was hanging around all my coworkers. Many of them were gay, and I started just going that way. And my one best friend, I gave my heart to her and, broke up with that man and told my mom that I'm born this way. There's nothing I can do about it. And I went headlong into a homosexual life for 4 years.
Okay, we're going to stop it right there because unfortunately we've run out of time for this first part of our conversation. So Tom and Donna, can we invite you to join us again next time to share more of your story?
We'd be glad to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was part one of Eric Scadabo's conversation with Tom and Donna Cole. And as we've been hearing, Donna's painting a pretty bleak picture of what her home life was like growing up, filled with one dysfunctional stepdad after another. And for all the reasons mentioned, it is pretty understandable why she would be a little bit confused about her identity and struggling with same-sex attraction. Next time, we'll hear how Donna eventually becomes a Christian before meeting and marrying Tom. Now, I don't want to give too much away at this point, but if you'd like to learn more on your own about what Tom and Donna are doing now, their website is pureheart.rest. That's pureheart.rest. Finally, as a side note, I want to share this excellent bit of news with you about Donna's mother. As we heard, she went through a series of unhealthy relationships. However, she recently posted this about her daughter and son-in-law on Facebook. My beautiful daughter and her husband Tom are two very special, anointed people. Their love for God is amazing. God tells them to go, and they go. I love them, and they are so beautiful to me. I am a blessed mother. Our God is good, and serving Him is a privilege. His love is unconditional. Thank you, my sweet Donna and Tom, for being faithful to what God has called you to do. That's right. Donna's mother has given her heart to the Lord, and she is now also serving God. We'll find out more of Tom and Donna's story next time. Until then, I'm Jimmy Colefax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
Next time on The Story.
I knew my life was not right. I stole, I drank, I swore, I did so many wrong things. I was a hard-hearted person. And so I came back, I knelt down, and I put my head down just so my mom wouldn't see these tears falling. And then God speaks to me, and He said, Donna, you looked everywhere else for love, but I loved you, and I died for your sins.
Tom and Donna both struggled with their identity and same-sex attraction while growing up and into their young adult years. We'll continue to hear their story and find out how they're now both serving the Lord. That and more next time.
The Story. Just another way Vision is connecting faith to life.